Hi crafty friends, it's Jarle. Thank you for being here. I'm sharing this card that I made where I did some watercoloring and I also used an embossing folder. Let me start by showing you the main items I used for this card. There's the largest of the lawn fawn outside in stitched hearts, then I have the Upon a Star stamp set and the Puff Dotty embossing folder from Spellbinders. As always, you can find a full supply list in the description box below. I started by watercoloring my background. I taped a rectangle piece of watercolor paper to my Make Art station. When I'm doing watercoloring, I always tape down the paper to prevent warping. I used the Tim Holtz watercolor paper. This paper has lots of texture, so it's ideal for what I'll be doing today. I'll be using distress inks for my watercoloring today. I have the colors Picked Raspberry, Wilted Violet and Broken China. I'm smushing the ink pads on my glass surface and I'll be picking the inks up with a watercolor brush directly from that glass mat. I'm taking a larger brush and I'm spreading clean, clear water on the watercolor paper. I'm doing a wet-on-wet technique, so I really wanted my watercolor paper to be wet before bringing in some color. Then, with a wet paintbrush, I am picking up the colors and bringing them onto that watercolor paper. I'm not being too fussy about it, I'm just bringing in all three colors randomly. I'm kind of dropping them in horizontal lines because I wanted it to resemble a sunset. These blue, pink and violet shades are really blending together nicely. You can't really do anything wrong here. It's been such a long time that I took out my paintbrushes and did some watercoloring. I don't know why, but I just kind of forgot. So I mostly use inks for backgrounds and Copics for my coloring. And this year I really want to start painting a bit more. So this card was actually a good motivator to get back into the groove of things. Now, if you want to build up color when you're painting, it's important to dry the paint in between different layers. So you'll see that I'm bringing my heat gun to the watercolor panel sometimes. So I'm building up the color by doing different layers of paint and drying the panel in between those layers. I hope this makes sense. So when I was happy with my panel and when it was all nice and dry, I removed that purple tape. Then I took the largest of the outside in stitched hearts and I ran it through my die cutting machine. As a result, I have this beautiful watercolor heart. For my image, I'm stamping the cute bunny from the Upon a Star stamp set with VersaFine Onyx Black ink on the same watercolor paper. I am using the other side of that paper, which is not as textured. I like that better for watercoloring little images. I'm starting with the scattered straw. Again, I'm smushing the ink pad on the glass surface and then I'm picking up that color with a damp paintbrush. I'm bringing in the color on the area where I want the shadows to be. And then I blend out the color with clean water. This way you get a nice shading. And this is only the base color, so the shading doesn't have to be perfect here. And with my heat gun, I also let the ink dry a little bit. Then I'm going in with Vintage Photo. This combination of scattered straw and vintage photo is one of my favorites to watercolor little bunnies. Again, I'm bringing the paint on the areas where the shadows would be. And with clean water, I blend out the color. This way you get areas with a darker color and areas with lighter color. I'm also bringing my heat gun to the image a few times, just like I did before with the big watercolor panel. It's important to dry the image before adding additional layers if you want to build up color. Also, you want to dry one area before going over to the next, or you'll risk color bleeding through different areas and you might not get good results that way. I also brought in some ground espresso for that teeny tiny nose of the bunny. And this completed my image. I think it turned out great. Now that all the watercoloring is done, I can work on the stamping. I'm taking that watercolored heart and I'm stamping on a few stars from the same Upon a Star stamp set. I did prep the heart with an anti-static powder tool. I'm not sure why I don't have any footage of that. And you can see that I'm really pressing down firmly just because it's such a textured paper and I really wanted a nice and clean impression of the stars. Then I'm sprinkling on that white embossing powder and tapping off any of the excess. I'm heat setting it with my heat tool until everything is smooth and melted. You'll see that the heart warped a little bit because of the heat, but that won't be a problem. I will be using lots of foam tape to even that out on the final card. Then I moved on to the sentiments. I chose the "Our love is written in the stars." I think it's just so sweet. Again, because I'm heat embossing, I'm prepping my black cardstock with an anti-static powder tool. Then I'm stamping the sentiment with Versamark ink and again sprinkling on that white embossing powder, and off camera I heat set it with my heat gun. I took a sentiment banner from Lawn Fawn to die cut my sentiment. First I'm lining it up with the left side and I ran it through my die cutting machine, but you'll see it's still a little bit too big, so I'm lining it up again and this time to the right side. Then I'm running it through the die cutting machine again, and this way you get a custom sized sentiment banner. So you'll see that size is just perfect now. I will be adhering that watercolored heart to an embossed card panel. So here I have the Puff Dotty embossing folder from Spellbinders. I think this is a great basic embossing folder, and it's been ages since I did this dry embossing technique. So I'm taking a piece of ballet slippers cardstock from Lawn Fawn and I'm placing it inside that embossing folder. The platform on my Spellbinders die cutting machine tells me exactly which sandwich I need for embossing. So I have my platform, then my embossing folder with the paper inside and an adapter plate on top. It goes through the machine and a lovely embossed panel comes out. I really love the effect and I don't know why I haven't been doing this more often. I did want to add a bit more interest to that panel, so I'm just blending on some picked raspberry distress oxide ink alongside the edges. You already know that I'm a big fan of ink blending. Then I think it's time to assemble the cards. I'm adding lots and lots of foam squares on the back of the watercolored heart and then pushing it onto my inked embossed panel. Then I'm taking that sentiment and I'm adhering it more along the bottom of the heart. I combined 2 little foam squares and some liquid adhesive to make sure it stays nice and put. Also making sure that it's all adhered straight. Then I also added my little cute bunny and I also used foam squares to put that little image on the watercolored heart. So this card has lots of dimension. I made a card base out of white cardstock and this piece is 8.5 by 5.5 and I scored it at 4 1/4 so I would get a top fold card. Then with dry adhesive I adhered the card panel on the card base. And this actually finished off my card for today. I have to say I really enjoy the process of creating this card. Like I said, it's been a while since I did some watercoloring and it really made me realize that I want to do this more often. I hope you like the inspiration and I wish you a very happy day. Bye!